I lied to you. Yeah, in this video from a couple of weeks ago, I said something that wasn't accurate in hindsight. I told you that finding dive watches for a skinny wrist was the hardest horological challenge out there. I was wrong. It turns out that affordable, modestly proportioned chronographs are about as hard to track down as Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie Catch Me If You Can. Don't despair though, Ben's Watch Club has done the dirty work for you. The many hours of dirty work. Here's our roundup of the best chronographs for small wrists that you can actually afford. These picks are not only the right size for your wrist, but your wallet too, all coming in at around £300 or less at the time of recording. They're all affiliate linked in the video description too for your convenience. Some were purchased with my own money whilst others were sent in, so check down there as well for the specifics. You'll also find a link to today's sponsor, WatchCrunch. What? WatchCrunch is a new platform made specifically for better watch discussions. It was built by a group of fellow watch nerds who were tired of the negativity and flex culture propagated on other platforms. Instagram. They wanted to create something more inviting, friendly, and productive. Unlike many old school forums that look straight out of the Stone Age, WatchCrunch has a slick interface that allows for an intuitive and digestible experience. No, not that type of digestible, that type of digestible. On WatchCrunch, you'll find loads of community-driven posts, including reviews, polls, articles, videos, and discussions, as well as handy tools to help you customize your experience. You can select what brands you're interested in, as well as receive unique badges and perks based on your contributions to the platform. New features are being added all the time, and it's free to use. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the video description. Leave a comment on this post within a week of this video's publishing, and you'll also be entered into a giveaway to potentially win one of 15 watch pouches. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Let's crack on with this roundup, shall we? A fan favourite staple of the small chronograph niche is the Sea-Gull 1963, so it's the perfect place to begin. Despite the unconventional name, this Chinese brand has a surprising history dating back to the mid-1950s, and this model is effectively a reissue of an original Air Force watch produced by the Tianjin factory in, you guessed it, 1963. From the limited information available, it appears that the main factory has licensed out the design, meaning these are now being widely produced by similar outlets at more competitive prices. Today there are many versions of the 1963 chronograph on the market, including different sizes, movements, and crystals. Most of them have the retro reissue look with a cream dial and slim, colourful hands, whilst others are modern interpretations with alternate branding, though most have identically styled cases and Sea-Gull movements. For most of you watching this video, the 38mm models will probably be the most rational choice, and for between £100 and £150 at the time of recording, you can grab yourself a steel-cased mechanical chronograph, a deal that's almost impossible to match elsewhere. If you're considering the Sea-Gull, I'd probably go for one of the sapphire crystal versions. It's not only more scratch resistant, but the dome isn't nearly as pronounced as the acrylic variants, meaning it reduces the overall thickness. It's worth applying similar logic to the strap choice. By default, most 1963s come with a khaki NATO strap, which is very long and adds more unnecessary bulk. If you don't already have an 18mm backup ready to go, I'd opt for a bundle listing that comes with a two-piece strap that doesn't pass beneath the case. When combined, these selections make the watch much more sleek and proportionate. There is a bit of a gap between the case and the lugs, but I think it's pretty good looking. If you prefer, you can buy one of these from the original factory store, but you will be paying a hefty premium to say the least. I also managed to get my hands on this Sugess Chronograph thanks to Aliexpress, which is one of those modern reimaginings of the 1963. Unfortunately, they sent me the 40mm model as a review sample instead of the 38mm one that I requested. However, it gives you a basic idea of what you can expect. Given that most of the other watches on this list are vintage styled, it's nice to have the Sugess which offers something different without compromising on quality. By ordering normally, you should get the size you've selected, it's just the sampling system seemed to mess up this time. An inherent downside of these manual wind 1963s in all their cosmetic forms is the audible ticking noise, which is particularly noticeable in quiet environments. While Tianjin Sea-Gull is already a major player in the watch space, I think it's also important we shine a light on some of those newer to the industry, so you'll see plenty of micro-brand watches in this video. One such example is the impressive Tonnerre chronograph from Swedish brand Nezumi. I reviewed a 40mm racing chronograph from this brand in mid-2020, which I thought was solid, but this new 38mm model feels much more refined and unique. While sharing the same diameter as the Sea-Gull, it has a more compact lug-to-lug length of just 45.5mm, making it wear a touch smaller on wrist. Unlike the previous effort, this model has much more flair, with distinctive turquoise sections across the subdials, and a brushed finish that I think works much better than their previous model with the sharply tapering lugs that have become a hallmark of Nezumi's designs. Like several of the options on this list, it comes kitted out with a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement, which provides accurate timekeeping, responsive pushers, and a relatively smooth sweeping chronograph hand, providing a near mechanical experience. Since my review in 2020, the brand not only revamped their website, but also neatened up the logo text on their watches, a frustration I'd commented on previously. Overall, the Tonnerre offers a more sleek, streamlined design than its predecessor that delivers the finesse I was originally hoping for. In some ways, it's a bit like a Western equivalent of the Sea-Gull, with a sporty 60s design that has certainly come back into fashion over the last few years. While the £250 to £300 price point makes it not nearly as wallet friendly, the finishing is very neat, the specifications are fairly good, and it's got a cool design you likely won't see anywhere else. My only gripe is that the strap was a tad too long, but otherwise, I've been wearing this one far more than I initially expected. I did a full review of this watch about a month or so ago, which you can view in the icon above. Once more, I had to get creative with this list to find some viable options. That means delving into watches that aren't marketed towards adults. You'd never guess that this Festina wasn't though, with a stereotypical masculine chronograph design that squeezes into its 36mm housing. As with the previous Festina that I reviewed on Ben's Watch Club, the case feels decent and the dial is quite tastefully done. It features an array of applied faceted markers, as well as textured and embedded subdials, and a subtle vertically oriented pattern enclosed by the chapter ring. Considering the low retail price, it's not half bad, but there are some notable sacrifices in the functionality department. That bezel and those screwed pushers? Yeah, they're kind of fake, or at least they're fixed in place. The pushers do operate, it's just that the ridge sections do absolutely nothing. The crown is also misaligned with the guards. As with the other Festina, the bracelet here is rubbish, just a lightweight folded link piece with no micro adjustment holes to speak of. Despite its shortcomings though, on wrist, it fits me better than 99% of other chronographs, and actually looks, dare I say it, quite nice. I like the red upper pusher, as well as the stepped lugs, which aren't too pretentious. With this model, it feels like you're getting some of that archetypal 45mm chronograph styling, but without the giant proportions. It's not the best watch, but it may be the perfect option for those with tiny wrists. Seemingly a quartz homage to the Sea-Gull 1963, the 38mm Rotary Avenger is an unremarkable, albeit well-sized chronograph for small wrists. This brand, originally of Swiss origins, is very popular in the UK, and while they may say this watch is British designed, I'm not sure how much design went into this one. Indeed, it's extremely similar to the Sea-Gull, with a comparable layout and near identical handset, as well as a similar array of typefaces appearing in matching colours. A different colour is used on the dial. This is more of a silver-white tone, as opposed to the creaminess present on the original, resulting in a slightly more contemporary look, though it is perhaps a little less coherent. Despite having a shorter lug-to-lug and a slimmer case, the Avenger has more wrist presence due to the thinner bezel and larger dial, which make it look bigger on wrist. It's by no means a big watch, it just looks slightly larger, despite the stats telling us otherwise. So it's not exactly original, and to be honest, I much prefer the original. However, this Avenger could work if you like the 1963 styling, but see mechanical watches as an inconvenience. While it feels cheaper, it can sometimes be had for much cheaper than the Sea-Gull, and is widely available in the UK with quick delivery times. In that same vein, there is a multitude of other 39mm homages available on sites such as Aliexpress, predominantly cheap clones of the Rolex Daytona and Omega Speedmaster from what I could find. I've not got one on hand as I'd just be retreading old ground, but the concept is self-explanatory. I'm not sure a small chronograph roundup would be complete without Dan Henry. This brand, named after its acclaimed watch collector founder, offers a surprising number of sub-40mm chronographs to choose from. Unlike some of the branding suggests, these are vintage-styled watches rather than true vintage ones, with modern materials and components such as steel construction and a mecha quartz movement. Viable options include the 39mm 1962 Racing Chrono, the 38mm 1964 Gran Turismo, and the one I have here, which is the Art Deco style 38mm 1937 Dress Chrono. Out of the three, the 1964 wears the smallest, given it has the shortest lug-to-lug, though the other two could still be worth considering depending on your wrist size. This 1937 is very nicely executed, with a tasteful gilt dial that's housed within a well-finished case. It's also very slim, at just 9mm, excluding the domed crystal, and arrived with a pleasing pair of leather straps that are more than up to the job. The strong leather workshop scent exuding from these inspires confidence in their durability over the long haul. I like the fact that Dan Henry offers a wide assortment of periodic aesthetics, but some designs are going to be harder to pull off than others, their wearability being firmly tied to your wardrobe. The specifications aren't quite as good as the Nezumi mentioned earlier, with this model housing only 3 bar water resistance and a sapphire-coated mineral crystal. Nevertheless, some of their watches are about as close as you can get to vintage ones without the maintenance headaches associated with them, which is what this brand set out to accomplish in the first place. A viable Swiss-made option comes in the form of the Certina DS Nautic. This classic triple subdial piece features a fully brushed finish along with a rotating compass bezel that doesn't have the best action, but is great to look at. As the name implies, the DS Nautic is well suited to aquatic action with an impressive 100 meters of water resistance, beating out the rest of its competitors on this list. This can partially be attributed to its use of the DS or double security concept introduced by Certina in the late 1950s. Not quite the same as your favorite toy from Nintendo. Among other things, this involves the implementation of additional reinforced gaskets and O-rings to aid water resistance even if the crown's left out. This makes the Nautic one of the most versatile chronographs here, able to be worn in just about every situation, however treacherous. The steel bracelet it's kitted out with is reasonable, housing mostly solid links, and it integrates perfectly with the case, which itself has a smooth structure with a side profile quite similar to that on the Nezumi. Personally, I prefer more precisely cut cases like that on the latter, though I can see the rounded corners and matte finish holding up well to bumps and bruises, which may become more visible on glossy watches like the Sea-Gull. The dial is rather plain with a simple navy and silver colour scheme, paired with well-spread subdials and bold Arabics for easy visibility. It's not my favourite to look at on this list. I'm not a fan of some of the oversized typography that appears to compete with the main logo. Nevertheless, this design gives a sportier look than the rest of the pack, and it feels like a better version of the Festina. I originally thought this was using a mineral crystal, though my diamond selector revealed it is in fact a piece of sapphire, which is nice to see. For an extra durable option that still fits your wrist, this Certina is well worth a punt. Have you ever used the chronograph as a stopwatch? Nah, I thought not. Most people seem to buy chronographs because they prefer the way they look, specifically the pushers and subdials. Therefore, I figured I'd shoehorn in a multifunction watch here too, given the visual similarities. This unisex Zeppelin 7037M-1, marketed as the Hindenburg LZ129, yes, that Hindenburg, offers a distinctive look in a diminutive 36mm package. This is fundamentally the same as the larger 40mm version, with the shiny silver textured dial and a classic mixture of muted accent colours. The inking's been completed to a good standard, and I like the red crescent hand, which I'm assuming pairs with some type of week calendar around the perimeter. You super nerds can let me know in the comments. I wouldn't recommend getting this one wet due to the low water resistance, and the acrylic crystal, while attractive, will scratch rather easily and could need polishing at some point. So it's not the most practical, but it is very unique. Within is the Ronda 706B, which provides the pusher with functionality to shift the date forward once per compression. The included Milanese bracelet is quite solid, with a double interlocking clasp for added security, though it is rather long, meaning the inner layer does wrap quite far around during wear. It's usable, but may be troublesome for those with bony wrists if the tip hits the wrong spot. Still, if you're after a quirky, dressier piece with mid-century proportions, this is a left-field choice worth looking at. There are a couple of other options that may also be worth considering that I wasn't able to get my hands on in time for this video, so take these mentions with a pinch of salt as I'm yet to try them in the flesh. When reviewers are saying a watch is too small, that generally gets me and my tiny wrist excited. That's more than been the case with the unusual 38mm Citizen Bullhead, the reissue of which sold out before I even learned of its existence. Therefore, I haven't been able to track one down at anywhere near RRP in time for this video, and frankly, I'm not paying scalper prices. This one has an incredibly short lug-to-lug of 41mm, and the absence of a crown apparently makes this one wear very small indeed, possibly making it an ideal choice for those of us with skeletal arms. Additionally, there's the equally elusive Geckota W-02 range. These 37mm vintage-style pieces bear a strong resemblance to the Sea-Gull 1963 and even seem to use the same movement. I haven't been able to track one of these down for sale on the WatchGecko site, though I imagine the experience will be comparable to the Sea-Gull variants. As always, their excellent product photography makes me jealous that I wasn't able to grab one. If it becomes more readily available, I'll link it in the video description, along with the rest of the watches mentioned in this video. Consider subscribing. I'll see you next time.